in Iowa, it's 48-45, you over Sanders. You were once way ahead. So what's happening?
Oh, John, you know, these polls go up, they go down. I stay pretty focused, as I think we all should, on what we have to do to build on the progress of the Obama administration, but go even further.
Go even further with the policies of a president that the public views as not so popular and not so good. Joining us now on the Malzberg panel, Christopher Hahn, Democratic strategist and syndicated radio host, and Kurt Schlichter. He's a trial lawyer and columnist for Breitbart.com. So let's, before we get into the what could be a smoking gun and the FBI expanded investigation of Hillary Clinton and her emails and the Clinton Foundation, let's talk about the polls, Christopher.
Yep.
Bernie Sanders leading and or breathing down her neck in New Hampshire and Iowa,
right,
to the point where you now have people like Dick Morris and others speculating that the man who just said the other day he regrets every day not getting into the race, Joe Biden, might get into the race, they say.
Oh, I don't think Joe Biden's getting in the race. And as for Iowa, Iowa is a turnout state. It's an organization state. She's got 60 headquarters in Iowa. So I think she's got a pretty good ground game there, and I think she's actually going to pull Iowa out. New Hampshire, Bernie had been winning by a big margin in New Hampshire. Now it's dead even. So she might even pull ahead in New Hampshire before too long. So we'll see what happens.
All right. The problem is, Kurt, also for Hillary, is that in head-to-head, just about everybody beats Hillary Clinton, but in Iowa and New Hampshire. But head-to-head, Bernie Sanders kills almost every Republican he's matched up with.
What a terrible state that we're in, where so many Americans fall for a guy who embraces an ideology that killed 100 million people in the last century. Good thinking, America. We're on the way to a bright tomorrow. No, this what a terrifying development. Actually, I think once people start learning about the truth about Bernie Sanders and his blood-stained platform, yeah, he's a friendly-looking guy, but you know, he honeymooned in the Soviet Union. I think that says something about your character. When the American people start learning about him, I think they will do what all decent people do and reject this socialist creep. As for Hillary, I'm just giddy about watching her getting her brains beaten out by this weirdo from Vermont. Yeah. So this is wonderful for me. You know, everybody laughs at the Republicans because we have Donald Trump, who would be an infinitely better president.
Really?
All right, let Christopher get in there. Go ahead, Christopher.
Bernie Sanders is not going to be the Democratic nominee for president.
He only has one pair of underwear, according to Larry David. How could he be president?
Right. You got to have at least 5 pair of underwear to be president of the United States. And according to President Obama, they got to be all the same color. If you watch comedians in cars getting coffee, which you should. But look, Bernie is going to fade shortly after New Hampshire. He won't win South Carolina. And on March 1st, he's going to lose every state but Vermont, which also votes that day. So, look, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, on the other hand, they are, one of those two guys is going to be the Republican nominee this year. And neither one of them are going to appeal to that vast middle, which most of the country is today, the vast middle.
I don't think that most of the country is the vast middle, Kurt. As a matter of fact, I think they've never been more polarized, wide to the left and wide to the right.
Would this be the vast middle that agrees with Hillary Clinton that we ought to have taxpayers pay for abortions? The same one that thinks we should take our guns and shut up anybody who isn't a...
most Americans believe that we should have reasonable background checks on guns.
Pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about candidates who are not running on a platform of restricting the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth, but not the Fifth, because Hillary wants to make sure she doesn't have to testify herself.
Christopher, let me jump ahead here before we, in the next segment, we'll get into the specifics of this email revelation and the reported expanded FBI investigation. But if Hillary is indicted, and Rasmussen did a poll, I think 46% of the people think that if you're indicted, you shouldn't be running. I don't know that it matters. I don't know who would vote for somebody if they're under indictment or charged with a crime for president. However, having said that, if Hillary is indicted, does then Biden jump in? Does then Elizabeth Warren jump in? Al Gore jump in?
Let me preface this by saying she won't be indicted. But if she is, given your scenario here, I do believe Joe Biden or somebody else will jump in. We've got a very deep bench in the Democratic Party, but she's going to be our nominee. She won't be indicted. There is no there, as she said this weekend, and that'll be it. She's going to, not only is she not going to get indicted, she will be our nominee, and she will be the next president of the United States.
Kurt, if there's no there, why does Fox News have a report today that the FBI FBI just, has over 100 people. They've expanded the investigation to include the Clinton Foundation and possible corruption laws in violation in a tie between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department.
Well, I have to agree with Christopher, because there is no way she'll be indicted by this lawless, corrupt Department of Justice. Now, I'm just a trial lawyer and a guy who held a top secret security clearance during my 28 years in the Army. And so I only know about this sort of stuff. And she is so manifestly guilty that if I had done
when you're a lawyer, you should be looking at evidence. You haven't looked at the evidence.
Out the trash.
All right, we'll come back. We'll come back and continue. Christopher and Kurt, don't go away, and you don't go away. We're coming back.
Let me ask you about another email in this batch, which was one in which you seemed to express surprise that somebody emailed on their non-State Department personal email, which is what you were doing. Why was that a surprise to you?
Well, I emailed 2 people on their government accounts because I knew that all of that would be part of the government system. And indeed, the vast majority of all my emails are in the government system. So that's how I conducted the business. I was very clear about emailing anything having to do with business to people on their government accounts.
All right, it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. Welcome back. Joining us rejoining us, I should say, on the panel is Christopher Hahn and Kurt Schlichter. They're still here. All right, so Christopher, that was the Face of the Nation, and she had just gotten finished explaining, at least she considered it explaining, why she told someone who emailed her, a staff member who emailed her something that apparently had a classified heading. It couldn't, the classified fax machine wasn't working, so she said take the heading off and send it on the unclassified machine. Apparently that never went through, but if intent matters, the intent was to send classified material, change the heading, which is all, as I see it, against the law. And if you read the quotes that are in the Fox story, I know you'll bash that it's a Fox story, but from the FBI, these people in the FBI are saying, they're outraged, they're saying, my God, people have been sent to jail for less than what Hillary has done.
See, this is the mistake conservatives are making in attacking Hillary. They seem to think that there's some corruption thing that the voters are going to buy. The voters think all politicians are corrupt. The reason why Hillary is at certain levels in the polls is because most voters don't know anybody else who are running. They have an opinion of Hillary. The reason why she's beating Donald Trump in the polls is because they have an opinion of Donald Trump and her. When they start to know all the people, they're going to vote for her. As for what she did or didn't do, I don't know what that's all about. They're putting more FBI people on there probably to get this done with before the convention.
All right, Kurt, the fact of the matter is Hillary Clinton is under FBI investigation, has been for months. And now we hear it's expanded to include the Clinton Foundation. I mean, this is huge. If this were Donald Trump, who was under FBI investigation for shady business dealings, or now it expanded to include tax returns or another organization he ran, that's all they'd be talking about.
Well, Steve, I would be remiss in failing to note that we don't operate under the rule of law anymore. We operate under a corrupt system headed by the Obama administration, where if you are a friend of the Democrats in power, you will not be prosecuted for what are manifestly and obviously major felonies. This is not subject to debate. You know, liberals always say, oh, global warming, not subject to debate. It is subject to debate because it's a law.
Kurt, I used to think you and I lived in different time zones. Kurt, you and I live on different planets, not just different time zones. I always thought LA was a kind of strange place where you're from. I don't know what you're drinking out there that's making you believe that we live in a corrupt, lawless society, especially since you practice law every day.
Well, look, when somebody commits a manifest, clear, obvious felony and isn't prosecuted because she's a friend of the administration, I have a big problem with that.
Well, obvious and felony and clear, those are the operative words.
It's a bad situation.
They're not obvious, they're not clear.
I love just sitting back and watching this. I really do. All right. So Obama's chief of staff was on with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, and they're talking about, basically he's saying, yeah, we're going to close Gitmo. Yeah, the president never said I'll do it by executive order, which he did. He's going to try to go to Congress, but basically they've decided they're going to close Gitmo. Wallace kept asking, what about the Constitution? Let's watch some.
And they had an opportunity there if they wanted to exercise under their Article 1 priorities and powers, whether they wanted to be heard on any of these questions. They decided they didn't. So these are not self-executing powers. They have to make a decision to do it.
All right, so and what he was talking about was if they wanted to take away funding for Planned Parenthood or this or that, they could have done it in the budget, which I agree with in that instance. But Christopher, again, what Chris Wallace was saying was what happened to the Constitution? Executive orders on immigration, which is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court because the lower courts found unconstitutional. Now on guns, which I'm sure the court's going to find unconstitutional. Now he says, I'm going to close Gitmo. If Congress won't do it, well, I'll do it. You just can't do that.
Well, if there are no prisoners left there, what are you going to need?
There are prisoners left there.
You know, if he can move the prisoners elsewhere in the world and we could save the money of operating this,
save the money. All of a sudden, a Democrat caring about the money.
It's an albatross of a prison that nobody likes. It was a campaign promise from 2008. I don't know why it's still open.
All right, well then, Kurt, maybe you could explain to Christopher the recidivism rate back to terrorism when some of these people who are no threat, don't even belong there, go back to wherever they came from or not where they came from and get back on the battlefield against the United States.
Well, you know, I think Steve, I actually think that the fact that these guys should be locked up in Gitmo as a matter of policy is much subordinate to the fact that the President of the United States is ignoring the Constitution. Again, back to the rule of law. Chris, you are not going to like an America not governed by the rule of law. I've been there. I was in Kosovo. I saw what happens. I saw the devastation.
Again.
All right, guys, Christopher, Kurt, you're not suggesting that Hillary would do even more lawlessness if she were president through executive order. I can't believe that.
I can't even cross the street here. There's laws everywhere.
Christopher Hahn, Kurt Schlichter, thank you both. Up next, Mary Madeline will weigh in on the news of the day.